You're welcome back. This is Newsfile. It's your most authoritative news analysis platform, and here on Newsfile, we put Ghana first. And so excited to introduce next guest who joins us for the matter concerning the president and his comments in Canada about women empowerment. Professor Audrey Gajipo is Dean, School of Information and Communication Studies. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me on the program.
Great. All right, so we go to that issue right away, but a couple more of the comments that have come in as far as the church is concerned. Kwame Sedusapon says, kindly let Dennis know that the major problem is the gullibility runs through our society. Therefore, the policeman watching may be a believer in the actions of the priest or malam infringing on the rights of the child and calling them witches and wizards. A similar situation may apply to some employees of Shraj. Thus, to expect these organizations to act is wishful thinking. We need to deal with the issue of gullibility first. How? I don't know. Interesting. Okay, and Nana Hesio Jiri says that Parliament must not attempt to push in regulations to regulate the church. In this our country, issues of tribe and religion are subjects of emotions and not intellect. What Parliament can do is to regulate the airtime, play, and media houses must look at content. As Jesus said, allow the wheat and the tares to grow together, and at maturity, you can separate the good from the bad. Praise be the name of the Lord. Let all your panelists shout hallelujah. Nana Ejiri, thank you very much for your message. Now, let's listen to President Nana Addo Akufo-Addo in his encounter becoming a bit infamous. Let's listen to it.
Not enough movement is being made by the 52% of the Ghanaian population that are women to be able to be in the position to make these decisions. The cabinet that I had, some 30-odd% of them are women.
30%.
30%. Is not good enough.
So next,
it doesn't
20%
reflect
more next year.
Well,
yes.
And as if they re-elect me, we'll see. But
if you campaign on that, they might.
Is that push that is key. And we are not, this may sound for the ears of people like I very reactionary. We're not seeing enough dynamism and activism on the part of those who are seeking this new. We're not. We're not. No, yeah, we're not. I'm talking about dynamism where it matters.
When was the last time you saw a dynamic head of state?
I'm saying those dynamic is not sitting around here talking. I'm talking about electing people to parliament, controlling political parties, because they're the instruments by which our societies make decisions. We're talking about decisions, not wishes and hopes. We're talking about decisions.
Right. So, okay, so what's wrong with what the president had to say? There have been groupings that feel appalled at what the president said. I'm trying to figure out what exactly is going on.
Okay, great. I think that the first thing we have to remember is that he said it in an international arena, right, in a space that had been created to think outside the box about how to ensure better equality for women around the world. It's not only a Ghana problem, it's not only an Africa problem. We have to remember also that he was represented in a particular role as the African Union gender champion. Right. So there were expectations in that room that he would articulate positions that clearly showed that he was practically championing gender equality. this issue has been trending and debated throughout the whole week. People have taken partisan positions. I don't think it's a partisan issue. And we need to take it out of the political partisan framework in order that we can really understand why the women who were neither MPP nor NDC nor CPP reacted in the way that they did to our president. Okay. So that we can determine what learnings can we take out of that, so that the next time our president is on the podium in that arena, he would articulate views that have everybody in that room applauding and not, you know, heckling. That's the issue. So now let me come back to what was problematic about it. I think what was problematic was, first of all, I don't know whether you realize that when he said my cabinet is 30%, you know, people weren't very impressed. And so Liz Doucette said something like, you know, so the next time we want, so it should have told him that the people in that room don't think 30% is such a big deal. Right. And why is, and by the way, our cabinet is not 30%, and we know that. It's more like 26% if you talk about 19 members of cabinet. By the time you talk about ministers and deputy ministers, we are not even looking at 17%. It falls just a little bit short of 17%. So he was coming from a country that hadn't shown what other African countries had shown. What do I mean by that? You know, maybe a week, maybe 2 weeks to the event, I read in the press that Cyril Ramaphosa, South African president, had not only shrunk his cabinet, but he had increased the representation of women to 50%. We know Ethiopia had 50%. We know Rwanda has 50%. These are Africans. I'm not going to go to the West. Right. These are African leaders, perhaps with the same similar challenges. And so they have been able to do that. So even your 30% is not impressive, but in reality, it's much less than that. And maybe we'll come to that later. The second issue was the issue of activism and dynamism. I think that nobody in this country will dispute the dynamism of our women, from the market to other spaces. Women's dynamism is all around us. The women and the gender NGOs have been very dynamic. If it wasn't for the dynamism, we wouldn't have the Domestic Violence Act, for example. It was a coalition of women, NGOs, and male gender champions who made that happen. Abantu for Development, for a long time, it's a gender NGO, it's a women's led NGO. From 2004, for example, they put together a coalition. I happen to know this because I was part of that coalition. Okay. Again, produced the Women's Manifesto. That clarified, that would clarify for anybody seeking political office what ought to be done to improve on the gender indicators in our country. A broad coalition of different people. That's activism, that's dynamism. And shop them around so that political parties, even some of them, they included some of those aspects in their manifestos. There's no question about that, that's dynamism. But okay? The president... just one more example of dynamism. That is very important because it speaks at the heart of even political power in this country. Is what, again, women NGOs have led in making sure that our district assemblies have more women representation than we have now. The representation is not impressive, but were it not for their efforts, will be even more abysmal. This is in the, you know, to talk about what other people, not government, has done. You see? So by the time he says people are not dynamic, we're wondering, what's he looking at? What's he expecting? Okay, so you seem to have preempted that question I was about to ask, but the question really is, Abantu for Development, for example, we know how much of championing role they have played in fact,
galvanizing women to go into political office.
Yes.
How successful have they been? That's the president's concern.
Yes.
That you need to be at the decision-making table to make the impact you deserve.
Yes. How successful have they been? Their success lies, and that's why the woman in that video, if you listen to her intervention, she talked about a very important thing, and I wish that our discussion will focus on that, the systemic structural barriers that do not enable. That's why you need to do something radical. Now, so Abantu encourages women to contest for political office. Other people do it. NetRight is a very dynamic women's organization, for example. You know, other people are doing, WILDAF will do their bit in terms of, you know, when it comes to the law, FIDA will do their bit in terms of victimization. That whole big space of women's movement, very varied. However, who has appointive power in this country? The president has appointive power. So the president can do like Ramaphosa did, can do like was done in Ethiopia, can do like was done in, what was the other country I
If he has
mentioned?
to appoint in parliament,
So,
if he has to appoint in parliament,
yes.
if he has to appoint in parliament,
Yes.
he has to appoint 50 or more percent
Yes.
of his ministers from
Absolutely.
parliament. So you must first get to parliament.
Absolutely. That's why we should have this debate. So again, what is that? It's a systemic structural barrier. So the conversation should be around how do we remove those systemic cultural barriers? I mean, systemic barriers. It's not only cultural. In this case, it's a legal one. It's a constitutional one. How do we remove them? How do we address them? Should we come back to the whole issue of constitutional reform if we want women to progress? Because then we admit that it's not about NDC or MPP and who did or who did. If we look at the history of the Fourth Republic, it's abysmal for all administrations. And it's abysmal because we are not adequately addressing, boldly addressing, radically addressing those systemic barriers.
Very, very briefly, a quick one. Do you think that the abhorrence of the president's statements include the fact that he ought not be here to say women must do something to deserve a place? Because do men have to do some activism and dynamism to deserve a place in public office?
Well, I think that perhaps some of the frustration will be that, well, women are doing things to deserve a place. There are women in our political parties playing robust roles. We have women's wings in our political parties. When it comes to horse trading in the political space, how much consideration do we give to women candidates, not only because they are women, but because we think that we need to reflect a democracy that shows that the people who hold up half the sky are important in decision making. And that's why it needs proactivity on the part of those who have the power. Because those who don't have the power, the real power, can't do much to change. So let me give you an example. Again, I'm insisting that the president can do much more than he has, because he has appointive power. We had 6 new regions the other day, right? Did you check out how many women were appointed? The ministers, so 12 positions. Right. Ministers, deputy ministers, one. Okay? And I have to ask why. Is it that even at the regional level, we can't find women? And if we think that the women we have identified may not be as strong as the men, and I don't believe that for 1 second, but let's just say for argument's sake, they may not be as strong. Should we not be asking ourselves, how can we strengthen and support them? Because we want certain outcomes. You see, those are the conversations we should be having. And I really wish that the president will pause. Not listen to all the naysayers, not listen to people who are trying to comfort him and say, you were right. To say, what did I say in that forum that got the heckles of those people in that room up?
Okay, now I come to Kuku, but let's hear, you certainly don't expect the ministers, women ministers appointed by the president to say anything different, but they held a press conference and endorse the president's statement and they disagree with Audrey that there is dynamism and activism. Because according to Esla Usu, that dynamism is dead.
Let the buck stop with us. Let us be the ones who will be the last generation of women who are verbally or physically attacked for daring to seek political office and elective office. Go out on the beat and do the house-to-house with them. Project their candidature. Encourage the females on the ballot, on the voters' register, to vote for female candidates. Then we'll be making progress. As for the armchair feminism, it doesn't change anything. It may make for nice sound bites, but after the next election, if we are not careful, we will still be hovering around 13 or 15%. And what would we have achieved? Nothing.
Nobody will move forward without getting up and opening the doors. So I'm telling the youth, the female youths in this country, get up, take the opportunity, build your skills, develop your dynamism, and open the doors. Don't wait for the doors to be opened for you. Doors to opportunity. We will campaign and advocate for gender issues to be addressed, gender inequality issues to be addressed. We'll continue to campaign for that. But we are also saying that use your collective agency, your numbers, move. And that's what the president was saying. Use your collective agency, your numbers, use that and move forward. Think, work through it, and open the doors. President's communication was perfect. He sent the message out. And it takes a bold person to say that. In that woman deliver a audience. He was bold and his position was perfect. That is what women need to be told. We shouldn't just sit there and cry about our problems, our issues, and that we are doing advocacy. Someone needs to tell her, do go beyond advocacy.
So the fact is that you can have all the good proposals. You can have all the good policies and laws. But if we ourselves do not get involved, are not dynamic enough to move away from just going to talk at conferences, to move away from social media to insult, and to see everything from a political lens, then unfortunately, we will not get anywhere.
Right, but can I get your brief comment to just the bits we have played from these, sterling women in the government's cabinet who are doing quite some good job there?
Sure. I think that their posture is reactive. They are reacting to the moment where they see that the person who appointed them in power is under attack. Again, I think they should reflect very carefully, because when I listened to some of those statements, I saw contradictions in that. Let me give you an example. In one statement, the person talked about the fact that we want to be the last women who, when we go out there to campaign, we are tagged, we're insulted, blah, blah, blah. That is not because women are not dynamic. She's just said we are out there campaigning. But there is a systemic structure where in this country, women who talk and occupy spaces in a particular way are seen as doing something that is against their, perhaps their agenda.
Esla. The Foreign Affairs Minister, Shelley Ayoko-Botwe, actually admitted and she proclaimed that when she was campaigning, not a single woman gave her the support she needed.
Well, I don't know about her experience. And that's the difficulty about this. And we really shouldn't be pitting women against women, because that's a shame. Again, that's why I said they should go and reflect on the kind of help, because sometimes maybe the women don't have the money to support your campaign, but they can support it in other ways. I don't know their personal experiences, but I know for a fact that when you look at the political space, there's been a lot of work that has been done to support women. And
Ajia Halima Mahama, who also spoke, we have learned from Gabio Asare-Tredako that when she was nominated by Akufo-Addo candidate to be his running mate, it was the women in the NPP who kicked against her.
Yes, and again, we must think carefully. We don't know all the circumstances. I would ask, why did they kick against her? Was it about her, the personal person, or was it because they didn't want a woman, the choice of the woman? You know, so we shouldn't get trapped in thinking any woman will do. Okay. You know, we should perhaps look at what kind of woman will do in what situation for which job. Otherwise, you are even setting the women up to fail, and then you turn around and you say she didn't perform. Okay, so Kuku, those who are angry, are they not justified? This is a president who wields power to a point in excess of 1,000, I think over in the thousands really. He makes almost every appointment. The boards, CEOs of parastatal organizations, he should have indicated, particularly being a champion by the African Union, should have indicated that this is my commitment by putting women there.
I didn't hear the president expressing an opposition to women empowerment. I didn't hear it. You can interpret it that way or say that you are not satisfied with what he said. But I didn't hear him suggesting that there should be no role for women in
he talks about doors that must be open, and he has a key to the door.
I think you should allow me to build my case. I didn't hear that. I've been a long-standing advocate of affirmative action, women empowerment, and all the rest. And it's true, Prof is right to suggest that there's been a movement out there and they've achieved some results. The operative phrase, not enough. For me, that was the key.
Must they do anything
I'm coming.
And to do enough?
See, first of all, the question you asked, I said people restrict appointments to only the executive wing of government. I'm here to do any statistical analysis of how many women have been appointed by this president and previous presidents beyond the wing of the executive. You were talking of boards and things, so perhaps we have to take our time and check how many women have been appointed to various non-executive, when I say executive, I'm talking of the government, central government positions. There may be more out there. But my point
we know the general position is the tokenism that happens around the place. A board of maybe 10 or 11, you see only one woman, or if you are lucky, 2.
You've just made a statement. You haven't given me any figures for us to analyze. I was talking of statistics, meaning that you must come with figures for us to analyze. And then you do a comparative analysis as to how far empowering the women have gone. But the point really I'm making is that I did not hear the president take a stand against women empowerment. I heard him make an edge for more dynamism and activism. Look, not enough doesn't mean nothing at all. He didn't say that, did he? People are entitled to disagree with the president. That's fine. And for us to have a debate. But when you move beyond that and suggest that what he did was a disgrace to Ghana, then you are changing the topic. If you seek to indict him on that, I disagree with that. It's a fact that, look, we've had women organizations over the period. In recent times, I haven't seen a focused, coherent, cohesive, and sustained movement.
What must they do, and why must they do that in the first place?
Prof was talking about systemic, structural, cultural barriers. That doesn't go away because you wish it to go away. That goes away through a sustained battle, of course, including us. Men must also be part of that struggle, let me be honest. But I'm saying that it's a long-term project, taking away that systemic, cultural, structural problem. Examples, for instance, in terms of, if you want to go back to the legislative branch of government, you can't go there unless you are picked by your party to contest primaries and then to win the elections. Do you recollect that not too long ago, there was an attempt, and this president was the leader of it, in his party, to make some affirmative action proposals for the party to agree for some women in some constituencies to get through. Do you remember what happened?
Even accused.
He was accused and said that this is not democratic enough. There's competition. Allow everybody, men and women, to come and compete. It actually created some internal disorder in his party.
True. Can I respond to that?
Yeah, please. Why not?
Yes, and it's a very good point. And I hate to sound like a broken record. But again, we go back to the question of why. Why is it that a reasonable proposal that says, look, a lot of men are in our party, we want to increase women in our party. And you know, if you remember the proposals, let women contest in safe seats.
That's right.
Where women already are, don't touch them.
Thank you.
Because we don't want to reduce our numbers. And again, I just want to say, people are not saying that the president, well, maybe some people are, but the larger group of women are not really saying that the president hasn't done anything. But just as the president thinks women haven't done enough themselves, we are also saying, and I'm one of them, to say the president hasn't done enough.
That's
and
fair. That's a fair comment.
And I will come back to ways in which he can improve it, because I really think that our role, and I'm a member of the women's movement, I think that the women's movement is still very dynamic, because you're right, it's a long-term project. So every time they are tackling other things, look, they've just been formed association of women in the media that ropes in the younger women. 2 weeks ago, there was something that they did addressing some of the issues. So as for that movement being dead, I don't agree. Unless you have a narrow conception.
It may not be dead, but perhaps a little bit more dynamism and activism.
But they are doing it.
Would help.
NetRight recently went and engaged on the lands bill, okay? The affirmative action bill, when it was being done, included all of some members of the women's movement. So they are doing things in their own little corners. But let me come back.
They should coordinate more and widen the corners into the bigger space.
Sure. And I don't disagree with you. It's a movement. It's growing. It's getting bigger. They've talked about including, especially the young social media type savvy people. So 2 years ago, for example, that was the agenda on Women's Day. They brought together the young activists with the older activists. Maybe some of you who may not follow too closely won't know what is happening in that space, but it's happening. But I digress.
Okay.
Let me come back to the issue of affirmative action in the political parties, because I think you're very right in pointing to that issue. And I'm saying we need to ask why. Why is it that such a reasonable was seen as a threat? It's because there are people who felt threatened. If you have an affirmative action thing, it means that I can lose my seat, or that seat held by a woman that I was gunning for, I can no longer. But I have power within my party. So I know that if I go against this woman in the primary this time, I will get it. So there are vested interests. So what should you do? It should be a conversation that the political parties should have. A real honest, and it should take awareness and education. So I think maybe the mistake
there's no legislation to that effect within the party constitution.
Exactly.
There's none of that.
Exactly. So those within the parties must be moving towards that and showing reason why that's good for the party.
Yeah.
Okay? Not just, it may not be good for you personally as Kweku, but it is good for the party and ultimately good for the country. And this is how. Then there's an affirmative action bill. So that affirmative action bill should speak to, at that level, when it becomes an act, it means that political parties are obligated.
Right, so I'll bring Roxanne and Dennis in, but quickly, once again, the question I seek to project a lot more times, and it looks like you're not answering me, is this. For the president, for those who feel that this is offensive and that is a huge gaffe on the part of the president, their point really is to say that you want to see dynamism before you take steps to improve the imbalance. Is to suggest that you want to say that President Trump says, I am waiting for black people to make enough noise before I take action against police brutality against blacks in America.
What an analogy. A bit mechanical for me. Look, it took a lot of black agitation, civil movements, civil rights movements in the US to push, to open up a lot of the doors. It just didn't take a collection of brilliant or competent activist individuals.
Yes.
It's a movement. It's a campaign.
That's the whole point.
And if that campaign is sustained and it gets to a certain level, the doors may open by themselves.
But let me respond to that for 1 minute.
Yeah.
I beg you.
So why not, please?
So the doors will open, but we have seen even from the race issue, from Obama's experience, that when the doors open and you slip in when they are not looking, and they realize it, they try to close the doors. So we have Trump. Yes, yes, and that's the reality. So, there's always a backlash because, like I said, there are once a certain marginalized group is being given opportunity, it means that those who have been used to that opportunity have to lose out, and it's a difficult thing for them to accept.
Okay, so Roxanne, when the president was asked about this again, and he said, well, if I'm lucky to win, then we will see. Was it the expectation of some that he would say directly and make a commitment and say, for example, that this is what the Constitution does to me in appointing people into ministries and so on, but I will get people from Parliament, but for those that I do not need to get from Parliament, I will ensure they will be in the significant numbers, women.
Okay,
because he has the power to do that.
Exactly, and I'll touch on that. I think, I want to be blunt here. I think our president wasn't prepared.
Yes.
He wasn't prepared. He wasn't briefed properly.
Yes.
They underrated the effect of the interview. Because honestly, I don't see why the gender minister couldn't have represented the country at that panel.
Well, that panel wanted the president in his role as AU gender
exactly, and I'll get
champion.
there. So where they demand, they insist that we want the president in his capacity as the gender ambassador for Africa. Then he needed to be briefed. His policy advisors needed to actually give him the statistics. And moving from the generals to the specifics. That's what's happening in Africa, where we have come from culturally, and the efforts we are making, and what you are doing in Ghana. And we are doing a lot.
Those you say should advise him are telling you he was perfect.
Hold on.
Hold on.
That is where I have a problem. You understand me? That is where I have, apart from the ministers, there are policy advisors that he traveled with. That's where I have a problem. Because when he come back home, great efforts have been made to help women representation in the judiciary within the past 10 years.
Was he supposed to narrate all that?
No.
No,
You see,
but
we want to see.
Go ahead. We're talking about what has happened in the judiciary.
In the judiciary, within the past 10
years,
years, the women representation, the higher courts, the High Court, the Court of Appeal, the Supreme Court, have increased tremendously.
Have you heard that criticism against Justice Wood, that because she was a woman,
I agree.
She ensured that this was done against men who were equally qualified?
I agree.
Yeah, but you don't worry about that.
Yes,
and that's what affirmative action is about anyway.
That is why when you are a male Chief Justice and you promote a lot of men, you receive the criticism. But I am saying that efforts were made. Indeed, university admissions, right from 31% in 2000 at the turn of the millennium, by 2016, the women admission rate is gone to 51. The women outnumber young men in the university campuses now. It's an effort towards projecting them when they leave school and eventually go into positions of power.
So women are making the grades. Don't talk as if they are being doing
exactly. And no, I am coming there. I am going to side. Hold on. I am going to side.
Yes, but he's trying to say that when the women were given the opportunity, they proved themselves. But they needed to give them that opportunity.
We completed 10 years ago.
Don't get that
the best award went to a female.
Clara Berry,
who is now a senior lecturer in the law. And that's the point. It's as if the women are not capable. They are capable.
Is that what the president said?
No, I am saying that when he needed to say that, for instance, Ethiopia, they've done this, they are now 50%. Yeah. Tanzania now has laws that compels political parties to reserve a certain percentage of their seats for women.
Then are you blaming the president?
I am no. By his rule, he needed to articulate these positions. The women would have been, they would have been listening to these figures.
I agree with him.
Hold on, let me finish. Let him finish. Then in Parliament, the Constitution says at least 50% of your ministers should come from Parliament. If I were him, I would say that I made the effort to appoint as many as I could get from Parliament, and then from the 50% that gives me the power to appoint from outside Parliament, I have done so. All right? But it's a journey.
Yes.
But you see, he was caught off guard. Yes. And these were top-class women who, when they get the opportunity, they pounce. So that was my problem. Otherwise, yes, otherwise you are brought to Parliament a bill, the Affirmative Action Bill. Yes. You needed to speak about it. You are brought to Parliament the Spousal Property Bill to be passed into law. That will, in a way, give women in marriages opportunity to have equal share of
Affirmative Action Bill, Spousal Property Bill. How long have they been on the table, please?
But you see, bills die.
What is the commitment of Parliament to these things?
Hold on. Bills die with governments. When a new government comes, a bill that lays with Parliament and was not able to be passed, it had to be brought back.
So by die with Parliament, not government.
Oh, very well. It dies with Parliament. Okay, I amend that. So when a new Parliament is born, the government is committed. So you say that you've resubmitted these bills and you are making efforts. Yeah. Look, there are Women's Day. There are no days for men. Yeah. Okay? And on this Women's Day, International Women's Day, you do A, B, C, D. All right? And then in your political party, there are wings for women. We don't have men's wing. These are things you speak about to show that something is being done. Okay? But our president was waylaid, and he was not properly advised on the policy efforts that he's making. And so he came out the way he did, and I can appreciate the backlash. But we need to learn from that experience.
You are saying Ghana has done a lot better than the president projected.
Yes. We have had women speaker. Yeah. For the first time, a woman had become a speaker. In fact, we had a woman chief justice.
What was the question?
A woman chief justice.
Talking now about the numbers.
Yes, balance. But you have to say that it's a journey you must get there. There's a second woman chief justice. That's an effort.
Yeah, something I agree with him.
I'll come to you shortly. There's a reason. Yeah. Anytime you come in, I defer to you speaking. Yes. And interestingly, there's some fun that's going on. I'm being accused of allowing you too much and in a way, disadvantaging the men.
You see the irony? You see the irony?
Keep quiet and come back and support.
Yes, it's not dynamism.
I will sit back and listen. Let the men talk.
Please don't sit back.
Don't forget to ask me to speak to the issue he raises.
Okay.
Kweku Baku's issue about I don't get it.
Okay, and this is a country that we have established. Women have established a bank of women's world banking to advance the cause of women. You understand? So, if the old man was properly briefed, he could deliver eloquent.
As far as you're concerned, this is the best we could do for women.
No, I am not saying it's the best. You speak of your efforts. You have come from a point of zero. All right. Where culturally women were asked to stay at home. And you are saying that even by your university admissions, you are making now the women have overtaken the men. In the public space, what they call
102 dozen, ministers. And you can't be proud that the 2 dozen constitute women. And you think it's a lot that is being done for... I'm talking about us. I'm talking about how many ministers. And what is the number of women? Yes, yes, that's what I mean.
Oh yes, but you could say that yes, you have had difficulties.
They must be active. They must show dynamism.
No, that is Sam. You must understand my position in this matter. That if the old man was properly briefed, he wouldn't have come out the way he did. That's the point I'm making. Instead of saying that the women are not demonstrating enough dynamism, you rather be speaking to the efforts.
Okay, hold on briefly. Now Dennis, he just referred to you guys and your time in the law school and Clara Berry emerging the overall best.
And before that.
Now, let me ask you a very practical situation. Out of your number that graduated from law school in 2009, you were over 150?
Yes.
You were about 200?
148. We were about 148.
Okay.
Then about 148.
That graduated out of a total of about 200 plus, right? Out of that number, how many can you boast of are active, so to speak, doing the job that you do as a lawyer?
By that you mean the litigation?
Yes.
I think for now it's very hard for me to count, no more than 5. But that it boils down to what you know.
Why would that be the case?
Because of the structural issues. Because let me tell you, if you do, let me make the point. Let me make the point about, and I'll address the issue of the president, whether the president was briefed, properly or not. I disagree with my colleague on it, but because of the question you asked, if you realize there are a lot of women in the faculties who beat us in the classroom, when it came to private practice, they decided that based on certain conditions, being a family, be social, they decided to stay back and take care of the children. Apart from that too, litigation is not that friendly to female practitioners. I don't know how many, if you decide to do a survey of even washrooms, go to the district court washrooms, go to other court, apart from this main court, if you have decided to go to the circuit court, check the washrooms that are there. This is a disincentive, in my respectful opinion. By reason of the anatomy, it's not helpful for women to actually be within that environment. If you can check the court complex, we have made a provision for where kids can play. How many opportunities have been given to them to, or sometimes it's been locked up? How many law firms have given opportunity for people to work from the house? Very few law firms. So the act of even being within a law firm setup, where you have to be in the office from 8 to like 9, it's not friendly for some of them who are so much competent to be in the in terms of the practice. But I have seen an instance where officers would give flexibility to women. The women have stayed in private practice, but majority of the firms decide to still be in the chamber system where people think that the act of work takes place at work, i.e. be in the
in situ
to be able to work. So there are structural issues that I think that is not friendly to women. That's how come you have more of our colleagues being at Attorney General's department.
So do you understand that the abhorrence to what the president has said, that they need to do something to have doors opened for them to deserve a certain place? Because as you acknowledge, these women that you came out of law school with, some of them far better than perhaps you did.
Yes.
And yet, they are comfortable staying in unemployment, being employed, than being self-employed, so to speak, when they know clearly that you'll be earning multiple times what they earn, but they are comfortable staying there. So, should the president be saying what he said?
I think that when it comes, because of how you ended the question,
it's a problem.
It makes it a problem because you see, one of the things that has also not happened is that we have not had the benefit of watching how the whole interview went that time. Apart from that, you could see that if you have a sharp person who is interviewing you like yourself, there are instances where Prof wants to land, but you decide to ask a further question. So sometimes you need to look at the context. Apart from that too, you also need to look at the background that other people are coming from, okay? And back and forth, I think that when this issue comes up, we decide to politicize it and we lose focus of the real issues as Doc is talking about. And I don't even want to consider the president's statement. I want to take the opportunity to say that, you know what, by reason of this statement, we have brought the issue about gender equality to the front burner.
Give me high five. Give me high five.
How do we address it? Because anytime we start talking about equality, we forget about the equity portion. We always talk about equality. Equality will say, let all of us come to court, let all of us use the same washroom. But equity, we will say that because of the anatomy differences, the women's washroom should be treated, quote unquote, a little bit different from the male washroom. And this discussion has never been about equity. We have always been talking about the equality part. Now back to the issue about similarities of some of other African countries, if we do not address the structures, believe you me, 30 years from now, it will still be the same conversation. And I think that we should take opportunity, as Kweku said, it is not enough. We can do more.
So the president should have been talking about what he's doing to address the structures.
And
not to tell the women that they have to be dynamic or whatever to open the doors that have been shut.
I'm just saying that that's why I come back to the issue, because if you decide to say that I want to pick on what the president said, in the Ghanaian context, other people will agree that maybe what the president said in the Ghanaian context was right. However, if you decide to put it in the international context, maybe he might have said it better. Okay? Because for me, the aspect of gender equality and how we are going to should move from a spoken word to an action word. And anytime we decide to render it to that of a discussion, because I decided to look at the Appropriation Act over the years. Let's look at how much money do we dedicate to the Ministry of Women and Children Affairs. Let's even decide to look at Black Stars, the footballers. How much money?
Now it's called Gender and Social Protection.
Very well. How much money do we give to the Black Stars when they win winning bonus? When women took us to the World Cup and they are crying in this country, how much do we give to them? So I think that if we decide to say that the president was not brief enough, I respectfully disagree on that score. However, I want to leave the president's speech and decide that we have got an opportunity to discuss gender issues. How do we address it? Because the president will be right in terms of saying that the Constitution, Article 78, says the majority must come from Parliament. And if you look at the number of parliamentarians that are in Parliament, in terms of MPP, it's about 23, 26. So I'm restricted in it. But we will consider that maybe you can give more appointment. But in terms of those within the political class, the bigger question that I want to ask Doc, how many of women like Doc will be willing to take political appointments?
Okay.
Some don't.
And sometimes
genuinely,
they are unwilling because you will discourage them.
And insult them.
She's your sister, she's your wife, she's your mom, and you say, don't get in there.
Yes.
Because
it's
we know what happens.
Yes.
They get insulted.
Yes.
Probably take a political appointment.
No, I won't. And the reason I won't is not because I'm afraid.
Promoting the dynamics.
Yeah, and it's not because I am afraid of being insulted. I have a very supportive family, so if that's what I want to do, they will support me.
Okay.
However, I have chosen for myself to be a professor, to be a lecturer, to shape young minds, and that's what I've chosen to do. And I don't think it's fair to say, but because you've been out there talking, then you should translate it into holding political office. I don't belong, and I'm a journalist also. I don't belong to a political party.
Okay, so can we say what the president should be doing?
Yes, let me.
Because he has the power.
Yeah.
The almost ultimate power. Yeah. He has it.
Yeah.
What should he be doing?
Well, let me briefly come back to what he said and what everybody said around the table. And I really appreciate the point he made that this is a moment for us to look beyond what the president said. Because what the president has done, you know, in journalism, prominence, he says something that other people have said, but it's because he has said it, it has ignited a debate, and we need to seize that moment. The president was given an opportunity, and he reacted. He had the chance to respond in a particular way. He should have remembered that he was the AU champion. So he can take credit for what other African countries are doing. You know, and then consider that in my own country, I have tried. Okay. There are some barriers, and that affirmative action bit would have been a great example to show that I tried it in my party. You know, there was a backlash, and therefore we need to go back to the drawing board and see how we can get our parties to accept that. You know, so I mean, and this is to you, Kweku Baku, there were ways in which he could have framed the issue and he wouldn't have gotten that backlash. Okay. You see? Okay. So that's my point. But what should he be doing? He should look back into the mirror. He should examine the statistics carefully. And if he examines the statistics carefully, he will see that we're lacking behind. We're lagging behind. He's got friends. Kagame, I'm sure, is his friend. Ramaphosa is his friend. The Ethiopian guy is his friend. Yes. And he can say, you guys are Africans like me. what did you have to do? And maybe he'll come to a point that says, well, you know, for example, maybe South Africa will say, and I'm not saying that's the issue, but would be like, your electoral system is a different one. Your electoral system doesn't give you the kind of leeway that me, Kagame, it gives me, you know, Ramaphosa, it gives me to quickly act. Yours is a long-term project. Maybe you can try and reform your electoral system, or maybe you should consider doing it in a different manner. Because where, for example, in Rwanda, they had, and I think about maybe 15, 20 minutes, 20 years ago, I was talking to a Rwandan who explained to me that, so they ring-fenced some seats for women. It was a strategy. Because, and then they had the elective positions. But that ring-fencing then projected women. Women saw them as role models. It encouraged more women. So that now, Rwanda's parliament is at 61%, okay? It didn't happen overnight.
Okay.
And it was a strategic decision. So we need to rethink the strategies. And the president can do it together with not people in his political party, because maybe some of them may not tell him the truth. Right. We know how we are. Okay. But with other people. And he needs to monitor. Okay. I think it's so important to monitor and evaluate if you want to be a gender champion. Okay. How have we done? What were the problems? How can we redress them?
Thank you so very much. Thank you so very much for finding time to come over and to help us to discuss this matter. We draw the curtains on this subject here, but
I'm calling for more dynamism, activism.
In a minute, beyond the questions of dynamism and all, we know the cultural inhibitions. We know the system barriers that the women face. You have sat here. Anytime I discover we have to discuss a matter involving a woman who is in public office, top public office, you are protective of them.
Sure.
What can we do, you know, to sort of liberate that sort of environment a lot more? Zanata Rawlings made a comment that any man would have made and not get attacked. She's being attacked on social media. People are asking questions about
her personal life.
Unnecessary stuff. If it is a man who made it and the man was a single father, the question would not be asked, why are you a single father?
Yes, is that not part of that systemic cultural structure thing? The mindset, that chauvinist, male chauvinist thing. It's part of it. So we are part of the problem. There's no doubt about that, you know. But look, for instance, our political parties, we need to insist, and both men and women in these parties, giving a quota to women in terms of party representation, not just the executive positions, but the parliamentary thing that when you're going for primaries, okay? We need to insist on that. Perhaps even looking at the, Nkrumah did something, but that was based on a campaign by women and men. Assigning seats to women in parliament in 1960, about 10 women. They created 10 regional seats and allocated it to women as part of an affirmative action thing. And it gathered momentum. Even then, yes. But to be honest with you, I do not see anything essentially wrong with the call the president made. I don't see it.
Interesting.
Perhaps, as made by my brother here, it should be the catalyst for us to continue the debate and find ways and means of dealing with the matter. Well, the attacks on the president within the partisan contest is not going to help the debate.
But as far as the women at the Women Deliver conference are concerned, the president has the keys. He's a champion in Africa among his peers. He should be showing the way with example and urging his colleagues to do the same.
He's done it before.
And can I say one last word? And, you know, Kweku talked about activism and dynamism. I am insisting that women have been active and dynamism in pressing for change. It's time for the men. It's time for men now to be part of that activism and dynamism. Okay. And I leave the brothers at this table to lead the way.
Thank you very much. We'll return and read some of your messages, loads of them coming in respect of this subject. Of course, we know that this subject is so broad and that we have not even, you know, scratched the surface, if you like.
NDC has reduced
we just
filing
focus
fees
on
for
the
women.
president's answers.
Yes.